Hello, race fans! Can you believe it's already that time of year again? Where we wind up the clock for what will be the 63rd running of the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Now let's hope we go digital this year, unlike last year where it appeared reading an analog clock was harder than a first grade spelling bee. Now put aside your Happy Meal watch and get ready for the most prestigious endurance race in America. I'll explain this event, the prestige, manufacturers, and drivers chasing this year's illustrious victory. This is your Hater's Guide to the Rolex 24. This event is a crown jewel in American motorsports, widely considered part of the American Triple Crown next to the likes of the Indianapolis 500 and Daytona 500. This 3.56-mile 12-turn course is located in IMSA's backyard, Daytona Beach, Florida, inside the oval referred to as the world's center of racing. Many of the world's greatest drivers have achieved victory, names like Montoya, who has never encountered a jet dryer on the road course, Fittipaldi, Dixon, Voigt, Unser, Andretti, Gordon, and the winningest of all, Scott Pruitt. Many of the world's greatest car manufacturers have designed and developed engineering masterpieces to chase glory in this event. I considered leaving Ford off this list, but I know a Ford truther would be in my comments quicker than flies on shit to tell me first on race day, when I consider the correct acronym for the Ford name to be found on Road Dead. So, for the sake of this video, this year, a total of 12 car, chassis, and engine manufacturers across 3 categories of cars and 4 classes will compete in this year's iteration of the race. These classes include GTP, which is the premier class representing the greatest innovations in prototype engineering, featuring 5 unique manufacturers. Next is the LMP2, which is a secondary prototype car with chassis designed by Orica and engines built by Gibson. Lastly, GTD and GTD Pro, which are GT3 cars closely resembling what you'll see on a roadway near you, featuring 9 unique manufacturers. Now that I've introduced the event, prestige, and classifications, let's meet the teams and drivers competing in this event this year. Let's begin with GTP, and no better place to start than last year's defending championship team, Penske, representing Porsche with the 963. Representing the 6 car will be Matthew Jomine, who has made crashing look like a full-time job, joining Aussie superstar Matt Campbell and Kevin Estre. Representing the 7 car will be defending race winner Felipe Nasr. Joining him will be Nick Tandy, who puts anyone in his windshield sight at horrifying fear, and defending WEC champion Lawrence Fanford. Also, underdog favorites Proton with an attractive car that gets anyone's oil boiling, and JDC Miller with an outstanding driver lineup led by Pascal Wehrlein will also be representing Porsche this season in hopes to show immense off-season improvements. This next team is making the big switch to Cadillac. Wayne Taylor Racing, representing their 10 car, will be Ricky Taylor and Philippe Albuquerque, who have caught a strong case of eternal suffering, never finding that 4-leaf clover, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or finding themselves as the bridesmaids and never the bride. Joining them is WEC superstar Will Stevens and Brennan Hartley. Can this be their year? Representing their 40 car will be Jordan Taylor, returning to the GM banner, and returning teammate Louis Delatraz, also being joined by Alex Lynn and Kamui Kobayashi. Also, new look for the banner Cadillac team Action Express, who returns Jack Aiken, who I wouldn't trust to keepsake an unbreakable item, with veteran GM teammate Earl Bamber, F2 champion Frederick Vesti, and Felipe Drugovich. We have to talk about Rahal Letterman Lanigan, who hold the banner for BMW, who is coming off of a 2024 campaign more disappointing than my 8-year-old self discovering that Santa Claus wasn't real. Representing the 24 car will be Kevin Magnussen, who has found a way against all odds to make clownery look cool again, joined by teammates Philip Eng, Dries Vanthor, and Rafael Mariciello. Representing the 24 car will be Marco Whitman, Sheldon Vanderland, Robin Frins, and Renee Rast. Can 2025 bring BMW back to relevance? Can you call it a comeback? Here comes Meyer Shank with a return that should be just as anticipated as Men on the Moon, while they hold the banner for Acura. Representing the 60 car are former Rolex winners Tom Blomqvist and Colin Brown, joined by IndyCar GOAT Scott Dixon and Felix Rosenqvist. Representing the 93 car will be Nick Yellowlead, Renger van der Sander, who has decided to take his skills of racing without headlights to Acura here in 2025. Joined by Kakoshin Ada and Alex Palou, who thought dominating in IndyCar just wasn't enough to satisfy him, as he looks to do the same here in the Rolex. The final GTP team is Lamborghini, headlined by former F1 drivers Romain Grosjean and Daniel Kvyat. Can this team's performance be as magnificent as the look of the car? Let's move on to LMP2, which will be harder to predict than a specific number on a Vegas roulette table. Perennial Power United Autosport will have 2 cars entered in this year's field. Representing the 2 car will be star drivers Ben Hanley and defending LMP2 champion Nick Buell. Representing the 22 car will be Daniel Goldberg and Paul di Resta. Next is defending IMSA champions Matheson Motorsports, who has a refreshed driver lineup in 2025, headlined by Ben Keating, whose 2024 campaign looked like that of a bullying victim. Defending Rolex winners, Era Motorsports looks to make it back-to-back with the star driver Paul Lou Chatine. Inter Europol looks to race up front with defending IMSA champion Tom Dillman leading the charge. TDS Racing, with a familiar mega team from seasons past with Stephen Thomas and Mikkel Jensen, who have become notorious choke artists. Now let's hope the Heimlich maneuver isn't needed this year. Joined by Hunter McElrea, who is known to bring an excessive amount of pants to the track each race after countless code browns. CrowdStrike Racing returns with former Rolex winner George Kurtz leading the team, joined by IndyCar superstar Colton Herta. Let's hope that he remains in the car if they may happen to be in an incident in this marquee event. Tower Motorsport goes big appendage swinging this year as they bring in the GOAT, Sebastian Bourdais, to lead this team to the promised land. AO Racing, with an absolute beaut of a purple dinosaur livery, returns as a sentimental favorite, with a stout driver lineup led by PJ Hyatt and Dane Cameron, joined by Indy NXT champion Christian Rasmussen. You can't forget about IMSA championship runner-ups Riley, bringing back Gar Robinson and Felipe Fraga, looking for a redemption story for the ages, joined by former F1 superstar Felipe Massa. Precom Racing looking to play spoiler as they bring in defending 24-hour Le Mans winner Nicholas Nielsen to lead the team. Lastly, in LMP2 is a newcomer, Pratt Miller, who I point to as my underdog favorite following the success they always have entering any new motorsport discipline. They bring in IndyCar experience with Pietro Fittipaldi, James Rowe, and Callum Ilott, looking to make a splash at this year's Rolex. Now, when it comes to GTD Pro, I'd consider this the most competitive field of the entire event. Paul Miller Racing will hoist the banner for BMW with 2 entries this year. Representing the 1 car will be familiar driver Madison Snow, leading the team joined by Connor DeFelipe, who looked like the next greatest driver on planet Earth until he had a 2024 season where he drove as if his dog had died. Now, let's hope that he found himself a new man's best friend and returns to his winning ways. Representing the 48 car will be Jesse Krohn and Augusto Farfus, who will take a downgrade to GTD after an abysmal 2024 GTP campaign. Let's hope they hired a priest to relieve them of all the bad juju that these two had last season. Pratt Miller will hoist the banner for Corvette with 2 entries of their own, looking to have a season much better than their mediocre 2024. Representing the 3 car will be Antonio Garcia, Alexander Sims, and Daniel Giuncadella. Representing the 4 car will be Tommy Milner and Nicky Kasper. Also newcomer, Corvette team Trackhouse, with a driver lineup for the ages, looks to dominate this year's Rolex 24. led by IMSA superstar Ben Keating. The next up-and-coming motorsport great and defending Rolex winner Connor Zilic, and supercar legends who have made names for themselves in America, Shane Van Glizzy Gisbergen and Scotty Mac McLaughlin. Now cue the Imperial March music during driver intros. AO Racing and defending IMSA champions will hoist Porsche's banner in the 911, led by defending champion driver Lawrence Heinrich, who can be so dominant that he looks like an NBA player at a JV tryout. Also making the switch to Porsche is Underdog Proton, who I'd say their biggest goal this year is to not embarrass themselves. Heart of Racing, defending IMSA championship runner-ups, will hoist the banner for Aston Martin, with an iconic number change to the 007, making everything in the universe just feel right for a moment. Led by returning drivers Ross Gunn and Alex Riberas and Roman DeAngelis. Ford Multimatic makes the return in 2025 after what can only be described as self-inflicted suffering. They had a car designed by those who had a math proficiency equivalent to elementary arithmetic. Let's hope they received our Christmas gift of engineering for dummies in time to make adjustments for their car in 2025. Representing the 64 car will be Mike Rockefeller and Austin Cindric. Representing the 65 car wouldn't be worth your time, so you are welcome. The teams of Get Speed and 75 Express will hoist the banner for Mercedes. These teams are complete dark horse underdogs going into 2025. Now, will they be the unicorns or the donkeys? PFAF Motorsports will hoist the banner for Lamborghini this year, led by Andrea Caldarelli. And race car driver turned broadcaster turned retired unretired race car driver James Hinchcliffe. Dragon Speed will hoist the banner for Ferrari, headlined by former 24-hour of Le Mans winner Miguel Molina, leading their effort this year. Lastly, Vassar Sullivan, who will hoist the banner for Lexus not only in GTD Pro, but as well as GTD. Representing their premier car, the number 14 will be Ben Barnicoat, Aaron Tielitz, Townsend Bell, and just like Hinch, is also a race car driver turned broadcaster turned retired unretired race car driver. Add that as another tongue twister to this awesome segment. Representing the 12 car will be Jack Hawksworth and former spotter turned speedy race car driver Parker Thompson, where he will have no need for binoculars again this year. Also to note, playing double duty is IndyCar star Kyle Kirkwood, who will be running in both these cars in this year's Rolex 24. The final class we'll discuss is GTD, which I will highlight for you the favorites and dark horses going into this year's Rolex 24. Windward Racing and defending Rolex 24 winners will tote the banner for Mercedes, with a familiar driver lineup led by Russell Ward and Philip Ellis. Heart of Racing, hoisting the banner for Aston Martin, will have a brand new look in their 27 car this season, with drivers Tom Gamble, Casper Stevenson, Zachary Robinson, and Mattia Drudy, who will be the cream that rises to the top. AF Corsa will hoist the banner for Ferrari with a 2-car effort this year. Representing the 21 car will be former 24-hour Le Mans winner Alessandro Pierre Guidi and female superstar Lilou Wadeau. Representing the 50 car will be Charles Leclerc's kid brother Arthur, looking for some success in sports car racing. Gradient Racing will hoist the Ford banner, and like I mentioned earlier, I have more faith in time travel becoming reality than this team performing all that great. Although, they have a headline driver, Joey Hand, leading the effort. Turner Motorsports will hoist the banner for BMW, led by consistent drivers Robbie Foley and Patrick Gallagher. This team could be a bingo card lottery pick to take in this year's 2024 Rolex. Lastly, I want to mention the heartwarming entry of the Iron Dames, who will hoist the Porsche banner. This team's constructed of a full female driver lineup and has been taking the world by storm, with stout performances in IMSA and the World Endurance Championship. Led by returning drivers Sarah Bovey, Rachel Frey, Michelle Gadding, and Karen Gaylord. Can they replicate the success from years past? Now that I've introduced you to this year's Rolex 24 entry list, leave in the comments below your favorites and dark horses in this year's 63rd running of the Rolex 24. This race is a test not only to driver talent, but an engineering nightmare to push these cars to their absolute limits in a 24-hour, non-stop run for glory. Those with the best survivability and drivers behind the wheel will be winners come Sunday afternoon. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, I request you to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell on the bottom to stay tuned for more great motorsports related content. Make sure to tune in this weekend for our multiple watch parties for this year's Rolex 24. From everyone at the Dega Boys YouTube channel, we thank you for watching, and we'll catch y'all in the next one. Unless you want to see more, there is a video right there for you to watch, as well as our weekly podcast. Oh, you're still there? Why haven't you clicked on the video yet? You know you want to.